Hello, audience of 4. It's great to be here. My name is Sam. I'm the campaign manager of the Free Software Foundation Europe. And one of the things that I do in my role is coordinate Document Freedom Day, which is our campaign for promoting open standards and raising awareness within governments, schools, and general public. Bit like that? Okay. Yeah. We want to achieve change through the Document Freedom Day campaign. That's the point of it. And this year we ran 60 events in 1 week. The reason it was a week rather than a day is that time zones and working hours mean people run their events times to suit them, which is great because it's a flexible campaign for them to fit their target audience. And we had our events all over the world. We had them in Taiwan, Germany, the European Parliament in Brussels. We had them in Brazil, several different ones. And in fact, every continent on Earth had multiple Document Freedom Day events this year. We have a vision of how we'd like the future to be in our campaign. We want to spread open standards. And most of you guys probably have your own vision of what I'm going to call Eden 2, your idyllic scenario you'd like to see in your lifetime, what you'd like to achieve. For us, it's a scenario where open standards are so ubiquitous that you'd have to explain the concept of a file format or a data exchange format which was closed to somebody in order for them to even understand what it was. We want them to be the norm and de facto standard. But we're quite a long way off that right now. Eden, we're not that close. And for whatever your own goals and whatever Eden that you're aiming at, I imagine, there's a good chance that's true for you too. How do we get to where we're going? How do we achieve the Eden that we're pointing at? How do we make that vision a reality? I want to talk about the lessons that we've learned in our pursuit of our Eden to do with open standards today. How we got as far as we have, and how we plan to use the lessons that we've learned in future. And I want to stress that, in my view and experience, it's not by working harder or spending more money, not directly, that we're going to achieve our goals. Those things help, but they are indirect ways of getting more people on board. Because ultimately, it's the people and our relationships with them that affect the change that we want to see. So when I'm thinking about growing our campaign, I think about how to develop relationships and how to get more people involved. Because ultimately, people bring resources with them. Even if we can't afford to buy things directly, when we motivate passionate people, they bring their facilities to the campaign resource pool. And yeah, they are an indirect way of achieving the other things that we need in order to succeed. People, however, they are unique. They don't fit exactly what our goals are or our campaign needs when we first interact with them. We find people like this at Document Freedom Day events all over the world who are interacting with some of the ideas that we're explaining for the first time. How do we take people who are uninitiated and turn them into powerful volunteers, community members that are affecting the change that they want to see? How do we go through that process? How do we turn people who've never heard of what's important to us before into teams which are changing their communities around the world? People like these Document Freedom Day teams who constitute what is our most successful campaign today. How do we get from here to there? We need to empower the people that we're dealing with. We need to supercharge them, like Mario. We need to find what it is that fits them, fits their vision of where they want to be, and provide it to them somehow such that they're achieving their goals, they're developing as a person, and they're helping to achieve our wider goals as a community too. We need to find the power-ups that meet them, whether it be how to write press releases, how to give speeches, how to do media editing, just giving them an opportunity to meet other people which will inspire them and broaden their own network. We need to identify what's going to power up the people that we have access to so that we can work together more effectively. And ultimately, we need to end with a tight team, a team of people who work well together, who work in a synchronized way, who communicate clearly between each other. That can often seem like a really long way off. Different communication styles, different expectations of working environment, different tools that people are used to using, and even just the bare fact of different cultural expectations to do with, for instance, food. We have lots of cake for Document Freedom Day. Cake costs different amounts and means different things in different places. Sounds kind of silly, but it's true. And we have to think about that kind of thing when we're running Document Freedom Day events. There are lots of hurdles in that conversion process between taking the uninitiated and turning them into a tight team. And sometimes all we can see are the hurdles between where we're starting from, the reality of the situation that we don't like so much, and the Eden that we're trying to create. I see a series of stepping stones from where we are in Document Freedom Day to where we're heading. And those stepping stones I want to talk about now, which I see as being about shared vision for the team that you're working with, shared methods, shared expectations of quality in the way that you work, and keeping those things synchronized during the course of your relationship with your team, so that when the landscape is changing around you, you don't forget or lose sight of where you started from. Right, so this is a nice stock photo I pulled demonstrating vision, because I think vision is the most important thing to keep a team cohesive, actually. There's lots of articles, blogs, and even some books about vision-orientated management, how you can unite people by keeping them focused on the same shared goals. And especially when working with volunteers, sometimes that's the only thing that I have to unite people, actually. Because with teams of volunteers in political campaigns, if they don't like how they're working or how other people around them are treating them in that campaign team, then they simply will stop participating. And the only thing that we've got, the only tool, the only thing we can offer them in many cases is the knowledge that we are aiming at the same thing as they, and that unites us with a bond. So when we're thinking about vision, what are we trying to achieve? What's the end point that we're going for? Is our vision too specific or too broad? And I mean, for instance, if we're aiming for 80% change of one particular thing, does that encompass the people that we're actually working with? What happens if some of the core people that we're relying on to help us are in the 20% of people that won't be affected by our 80% goal? We need to think about those scenarios and talk about them before they happen. Because otherwise, vision, yeah, maybe all you can see is the snowstorm around you. And at times you're going to feel isolated, like these guys. You're going to be, you're going to feel like you don't have a map. Because when the vision loses its clarity, and you're facing all the challenges that you have when you're trying to change the world in whatever way you are, yeah, things start to fall apart. So, yeah, that's one too soon. What we do in Document Freedom Day is we try not to get stuck in technical details when we're dealing with vision. Open standards are a really complicated topic. They involve a 100-page procurement law in different governments. I mean, just the standard documents themselves defining how something works are often so long that the only people that could ever afford to read them are people who are being paid a salary to do so. There are competing standards. There are some which are more restrictive than others. And all the time, there are companies who are profiting from closed standards who are muddying the waters around what an open standard is and what a government should adopt when they're spending taxpayers' money on technology. That's why we try and keep a high-level view of where we're heading for. We want open standards broadly to be adopted. We want them to be widely understood, widely known. We do have specific goals, like, for instance, focusing on HTML5 as an alternative to lots of proprietary platforms. But even that is pretty broad. When we talk about, when we try and convince companies to switch from, for instance, Adobe Flash to HTML5, we try and keep a very narrow focus. And that's part of the vision of the campaign in general. We keep a broad vision that will appeal to as many people as possible. And when we get those emails every day during the campaign launch about how this standard might be better than the other, how PDF version 1.6 is too old to be useful, or how people can't open this file with this application because support is too problematic, we remind people of the broader vision that we have, and that helps stick on the same page. We have some explicit rules about how we operate as a campaign internally. We obviously only use open standards in the way that we work, and that helps to send a message. I mean, it helps send a message externally, but it's a way of living the vision that we are selling to others. We know that some things are hard to do when you're using exclusively open standards, and we know that some things work much, much better. And we do that. I mean, our campaign team, our volunteers, people spread thinly around mainly Europe, who we're working with on these things, they come to have first-hand experience of the situation with these standards. That unites us as a group because we all have that shared experience of those things working and those things not. And it's a way of, keeping focused on a shared vision. We associate with other visionary projects who are very clear about their goals. That includes ANSOL in Portugal, April in France, and the Document Foundation. We are idealistic in the goals that we have. We talk about universal adoption of open standards. We talk about governments adopting universally open standards at some stage in future. We set our sights high when we're talking in visionary terms. And we stick to the vision that we have even when we're socializing. I mean, it becomes clear when we have new campaign members, when we're just around them, when we're talking about them, we communicate our belief in the vision that we have by the way that we live and by the vocabulary that we use and by the way that we work. It's kind of contagious in a way. We have a shared belief within our team that open standards work and are going to only improve in future. And you can't help but realize that if you stick around the campaign for any period of time. So that's how we have been trying to stay focused on our vision of open standards and communicating it to the world. Adobe Acrobat Reader is a nice example, actually. I was talking about PDF a second ago. It's an example of how different people have different vision of where open standards should be going. Because, although we endorse only free software PDF readers, they don't have universal compatibility with PDF files. That's for lots of technical reasons. But we know as a team that if free software PDF readers have wider adoption, there's going to be more resources available to those to be better solution in future. That's an example of our vision being a little bit further ahead or broader than some of the people that we're working with. And it doesn't work for companies who need short-term solutions. But we don't need, our goal is having a clear vision, for the campaign internally. Excuse me. Vision is theoretical, however, and when we're executing the things that, when we're trying to achieve this Eden that I've been discussing, we need to be pulling in the same direction. All too often, people think they're united in the goal that they're trying to achieve, but they actually, when it comes to strategy, it's not so clear, especially when we're dealing with communities who are widely distributed. When we're dealing with people who communicate only through mailing lists, it might seem obvious to me as a campaign coordinator that having clearly written texts is more important than meeting, for instance, some deadlines. But when that communication breaks down, when our methods aren't clearly communicated internally, then things tend to fall apart. Volunteers get frustrated, and we end up spending resources we don't have working against each other. We need to make sure we're not duplicating efforts, that we're giving access to the resources that we have to the people who can use them best. And that can be actually pretty tough. So that's why in Document Freedom Day we have a clear distinction between official campaign activities and community activities. We make sure that there's the freedom for community members to do what they wish in the way that they promote open standards, which results in all kinds of events that we couldn't have thought of. For instance, last year we had one team who had a music jam live on stage with instruments I'd never even heard before, using open standards to beam their performance live to different places. I couldn't have thought that up, and if we needed if we had a central hierarchy rubber stamping the activities that people did, that kind of creativity probably wouldn't have happened. At the same time, we need to make sure that we do stay focused on a few core methods to achieve the goals that we've set for Document Freedom Day each year. And that's why we try and communicate very clearly that we have official events and we keep them few and focused, and then more broadly there are community events. Sometimes it's difficult to make that obvious. Branding and all that stuff is what's useful, apart from other tactics, but it's an important strategy. We also make sure that we only choose methods together, collaboratively, at meetings where human beings are physically in the same place, preferably. That means people aren't going to forget what it is that we're aiming at and the systems that we're planning on using. It means that if we say we're going to have a petition to affect how PDF is used by government, people aren't going to forget that discussion because they're actually going to have been in the room at the time, voiced their concerns, and had their input. We document the systems that we're using. We make sure that it's written up. It's shared on public lists. People can refer to it. We try and do things as openly as possible. That means that when we have things that are remembered differently by different people, there's a common place to look, and people's names are on the discussion as it took place. And we make sure we invest time in regular training in the important tools that we use, and in things like, again, writing press releases. FSFE's president, Carsten Gerloff, took the time to fly to our central office, and we paid for the core volunteers of the campaign to come and be trained in how to deal with the press when writing press releases. They didn't all develop perfect skills, but they didn't need to. They're on a road where they believe that's achievable, and we're working together as a group to improve the level of skill in general when it comes to press releases. That means in future years the burden is going to be reduced on the core staff. Yeah, and when it comes to new ideas for the core campaign, we have to be very strict about actually only doing a couple of things. I'm getting a 5-minute notice this morning at the back. Is it okay if I go a little bit longer, or am I going to be decapitated? I see. Okay, well, I'll do my best to adapt. That's the shared method. That's pulling in the same direction. That's implementing the vision. And yeah, that's a shared method, right? Because when you're using a tool that doesn't allow deviation from the method that you've agreed at the start, then it's a hell of a lot easier to stay focused. That isn't always possible. And again, you've got to give people the choice to use the tools that they like. But thanks to open standards, hopefully it's going to be relatively easy for people to use the tools that they want at the same time as remaining readable by the people that they're working with. Yeah. So the next category, or the next stepping stone, is shared expectations of quality, as I mentioned at the beginning. Because it's all very well having the same shared vision and even the same shared strategy of where you're trying to get to. But when people have very different expectations about what's good enough, when something is ready to be published, what is okay to represent the campaign that you're working on, then again you have problems. And one of the most demotivating things, in my experience, for a volunteer, is when they've put a lot of work into something. And maybe they spent, 3 hours writing something or designing something, only for somebody to spend 5 minutes saying, that's not good enough, I'm sorry, we can't use that. Or alternatively, yeah, that's nice, please invest twice the time again. Yeah, often that volunteer, that member of staff even, isn't going to actually invest that time. They're going to drop it and they're going to work on something else. And maybe next time they have a great idea, they're not going to bother putting it into practice. So it's a really important one. This is I use this image as a bare bones car. Like, I wouldn't describe that as a car. Sometimes I see designs representing our campaign and I think, well, that's not what I had in mind when I was imagining our branding. That's not what I have in mind when I think of a roadworthy vehicle. But it's, as you can see, in Britain, we have different views on quality there as well. But we have strategies too for maintaining quality control. Often the last 20% of a task is the most demotivating, the biggest struggle. Because people think they're almost there, they're just around the corner, and then, oh well, to incorporate all these other people's needs or changes, modifications, yeah, that's too much effort. That's why in our campaign we make sure people are available on the end of a phone so that there's someone to call when they're getting frustrated completing a task. I personally recognize the importance of the last 20%, and I try and make sure that people have support to do it. Maybe, I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes just spending a bit of your own time or spending a small amount of campaign resources on getting something through a bottleneck can be enough to re-energize the person who owns that task, who owns that project, whatever it is. Maybe that can motivate them to put in that last 20%. Can make a big difference. We also refer to what we've used in the past. Fortunately, in Document Freedom Day, we've been going for more than 5 years now, and that means we have a backlog of articles and graphics that we've already used. And it's really helpful to just be able to refer new staff, new campaign members to stuff that we've already done as examples of what's good, what we think works. Using collaborative tools is also really helpful here, because it means that before somebody's already invested a lot of time going down the wrong path, somebody can take a look and maybe give them a nudge in the right direction. Collaborative tools mean that, I mean, it's great using collaborative tools like Etherpad, for instance, because people who, I mean, it can motivate other people who haven't actually been involved yet. They can see, okay, I can write good English, maybe I don't want to spend the time writing something completely. I can see this person has actually started something, they've written the first couple of paragraphs. If they were faced with a blank slate, maybe that new person wouldn't have bothered to contribute. But when they can see there's maybe only a quarter of a project done, it encourages them to get involved. Yeah, it's very important, obviously, to keep track of these 3 things: quality expectations, shared methods, and shared vision as the landscape around you changes. I'm not going to talk about that much now because I'm running short of time, but yeah, it's a real challenge. And I think if you're not careful, even if you start at the same point, then people end up in wildly different places. Budgets change, political landscapes change, somebody writes an article about you that you didn't expect and it reframes the campaign. Maybe you need to readjust regular meetings to make sure people stay in touch, and doing work as much in public as possible really helps with that. I, for instance, try and send more or less daily reports as we get closer to Document Freedom Day to make sure that people are aware of what I'm doing. Yeah, the last point is about value, perception of value. How we translate these things that I've been talking about, our shared vision, our shared methods, how we translate the value and the importance of those things to people that we aren't already familiar with. Because what motivates us, our experiences, that drove us to be interested in free software or open standards, whatever your own endeavors may be, what our experiences were are unique to us. And other people need to have their own aha moment, their own realization that what you're trying to sell them is actually really relevant to them. That the cost of becoming familiar and understanding what you're trying to explain is worth their investment, because it's actually going to pay off in practical terms. What's most helpful here, in my experience, is personal stories. Everybody who's involved with Document Freedom Day in an active way has some experience of the benefits and the problems associated with standards being opened and closed. Just letting those people tell their stories to the public and to other people in their sector can be the most effective way of winning new converts, because they will tell it with passion. They will tell it with a reality which can't be matched by pre-written dialogues or, arguments that we might provide on the Document Freedom Day website. Giving people the space to engage with people who've had similar experiences can be the most effective way, in my experience. And just sharing our methods and ideas as broadly as possible. The lessons that our local coordinators have learned, putting them in touch with each other, making sure they get a chance to meet each other face to face. Being clear about what they're going to get back from contributing to the campaign. For starters, what is it that they're actually trying to achieve by participating in Document Freedom Day? Is it enough that they'll contribute to a global public awareness campaign, or is it something very specific to their local region that they want to achieve? Because how we can support them as a central team, how we can support our local groups, varies hugely depending on the answers to those questions. And if we don't ask those questions, then we won't know. That's why we do surveys several times a year. To different groups, tailored and translated as much as possible, so that we actually have some hard evidence from what the people that are supporting us want back from us, making sure that we allocate a big chunk of the resources that we have to helping them achieve their own goals. Yeah, and by doing all that, we do empower people to change the world for the better. We empower communities and individuals to seek out like-minded people, to work with us and to promote open standards. Ultimately, we at FSFE, we in the Document Freedom Day core campaign, we didn't run 60 events in a week. I think that much is probably obvious by now. We empowered people and built relationships to inspire other people with the belief to do that for themselves. And that's all we can do, really, because I'm just one person. Our office in Berlin is in Berlin. It's not in Indonesia, it's not in Taiwan, it's not in Russia. By sticking to our shared vision, keeping the same shared methods as the campaign progresses, and having similar expectations of quality, we're going to grow the number of events that we have each year, and we're going to continue changing the world just as you can. Yeah, I hope to see you all in Document Freedom Day 2014. There's tons of opportunities to interact, whether you're a business or individual or a community leader. Information on documentfreedom.org. Let's change the world together. Thank you for listening. I would ask questions, but I guess time's really short. Did we have any questions?
Your presentation. Turn this off.
Yeah, it's pretty monstrous, that thing.
Yeah. Mozilla. Something like that.
Yeah, which is an awful lot of heat fighting against this air conditioning system.
Actually, I find this room pretty comfortable.
Comparison to the rest of the place, yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know, everybody leaves the doors open downstairs. It seems counterproductive.
Yeah. Alright. Speed talking contest.
Yeah. Trying to squeeze in as much content as possible.
Yeah. I actually expected to talk to be a little bit more about the practical sides of this organization, of actually organizing the events.
Yeah.
It's what I saw was actually more broad approach in.
I don't have any training in management, and I guess that comes across the vocabulary that I'm using, but it also makes it very interesting to me because I'm trying to learn as I go. So I'm talking about, vision-orientated leadership and stuff like that. Yeah, it's very important to me as a campaign could have talked
sure.
about the practical stuff too.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually for the presentation, for the goal, that goal you did, I think you did well. So,
Nice.
yeah, no,
Audience of 3 appreciate it, I hope.
yeah, sure. Not only courtesy, I'm genuinely interested, so.
That's good, that's good. Practice makes perfect, right? So,
That is absolutely true.
keep at it.
Definitely.
Yeah, let's look at that. Back to this one, eh?
I see you downstairs.
Okay, so key signing puzzle, right?
I don't know, my brain needs beer.
My brain needs something.